Hello, this is Mark Anders again, coming back with you with a similar video from last time, but coming at it from a slightly different angle. The last time I talked about the things you should and shouldn't say to someone who is suffering from mental illness. If you haven't watched that video, I want to ask you to go back into on my channel and find that video and watch it, because it does talk about some things that are very important. If you care about somebody, you have somebody in your home or somebody you know, a relative, close relative, suffering from mental illness, I think some of the things I said in that video could be helpful to you if you're willing to apply them. Today I want to come at it from a little bit different angle, but this time I want to talk about for those who care, of course, but I want to talk about the need for understanding. A little bit about the understanding. Now, you know, if someone has mental illness in your family, we know about the part about the darkness, about the feeling of a black cloud, a feeling of condemnation on your spirit. I mean, in some cases, people, their minds are telling them that they're terrible people, and for no reason, filling their minds with irrational thoughts, things that make no sense, that they know are not true. But for some reason, it's making it seem true to you, and there seems to be nothing you can do about it. We know about that part of depression in particular. But there are some symptoms that go along with it that I believe you may have noticed in the person that you're thinking about. There may be certain symptoms you've watched go on with them, and it might not be a surprise when I talk about these. I want to talk about them and mention them in a way that you can maybe in some way become more understanding for that person. If you know what to look for, don't be surprised. It's what goes with that. And sometimes we can do more harm than good if we don't show a little bit of understanding, a little bit of patience, knowing we're thankful that we don't have to deal with it, right? But here's several things here I want to mention to you about it that go along with it. There is a symptom of fatigue, particularly with depression. Fatigue. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that you feel tired all the time. One of the residual effects of my depression that has lasted over the years, one of those effects is that I wake up every day, regardless of how many hours of sleep I've had. I wake up every day tired, in my legs, in my body. Like I say, it doesn't matter how many hours I sleep. I don't know why, but it has for years been just like that. I feel fatigue. I use a CPAP machine, and so I sleep like a baby when I sleep, but then I wake up even after having a good night's sleep, and I still feel that sense of fatigue in my body. If you live with someone, or you know someone, you're very close to someone who shows that sign of fatigue in their life, don't be surprised. And let me tell you something, friend, if there's real mental illness going on, there's nothing they can do about it. Show some understanding there. Now, sometimes people will use sleep as a way to escape from their situation. They want to get away from it. I was talking to someone recently, and they were talking about a lady, a dear lady, a friend of ours in the family, who had depression, and it had been so bad for her that the only thing she felt like doing every day to get out of the bed was to go and have her hair fixed. She would go to have her hair fixed once in a while, and when she got back, she went right back to bed. Unfortunately, one day they came home and they found the poor lady had passed away in her sleep. But how terrible it must be that you don't feel like doing any more than that. And the doctor who cared for her said that it was the worst case of depression he had ever seen. Friend, it does real things to you. A friend of mine some time back told me a story about his wife, and that he had gone to work that day and had come home, and she'd been showing sort of strange behavior and everything, but he came home one day in the afternoon late, and she was still in the bed. Well, he asked her a question sarcastically, kind of like, have you been in the bed all day? The chances are that young lady had depression or may have depression. And friends, sometimes you just can't overlook it. I mean, sometimes people are lazy, give it that, we know all that. But when someone is suffering from depression, it's just something that causes them to feel fatigue and, yes, even sleepy. Another thing, and I think these two are closely linked, is that a person has a loss of interest in things they used to like doing. They used to like to go out to the movies, go out to the restaurants, go out to the community functions and things like that, ball games and whatnot. But all of a sudden, you've noticed they no longer feel like going out to those things anymore. And you wonder why. You seem to have such a love for it, really into it, really into the game, and went to the game and all of that. Why all of a sudden is this person showing no interest in doing the things they used to do? I can tell you, friend, from experience for myself, there can be a sense of dread for a person with mental illness every time somebody mentions going somewhere. I wish it weren't so. I wish it weren't true. But there's a sense within that person that they feel a sense of dread when anybody is mentioning about going somewhere or doing something that's going to involve them. We get sort of in a safe zone, a comfort zone, where we feel comfortable doing certain things, and when we see something come against that to interfere with that schedule of things that we have in our mind, sometimes we feel like we're being pulled out of our comfort zone. It causes a certain amount of distress. I can always feel the difference, even to this day. We go to the mountains periodically. And I live in just north of Charlotte, but we go to the mountains to Asheville, where I was born and raised. And we visit there periodically, but I can always tell when we're about to be going up there again. In the week leading up to our leaving, in the last couple days, I begin to feel this discomfort because we're leaving to go up there. Now, we have a good time when we go up there. We enjoy ourselves. We visit family and friends. We have a good time when we go up there. It's not about that. It's just about feeling like you're out of your comfort zone, and you feel like you need control over that, and sometimes you don't feel like you have the control that you would like. Be understanding of that with people. One thing I've always had a pet peeve about is having spur of the moment activities come up, or something where somebody comes to me and they're going to say, we got to do something tonight. We got to go do this. You want to go and do this? Put you on the spot. I wished it were different, but generally, if I'm going to go somewhere, I like to know a little bit in advance, more than a day or a few hours. We develop a routine. Okay, we try to stick by it every day. It might not be much of a routine, it might be a minimal routine, but anything that interferes with that can cause a certain amount of discomfort and distress for someone who's in depression. All I'm saying is, if you're someone who loves somebody who has this illness and you see these kind of activities, don't take it personal. It's something that they can't do anything about. And you say, well, it's not my fault they won't go anywhere or do anything. No, it's not your fault. But friend, it's not their fault either that they don't want to do anything, because that's part of what goes along with mental illness. And let me mention this. One thing throughout my life that I've had in dealing with all this, people want me to go somewhere, family want me to go see something, go watch the grandchildren, all that sort of thing, all great things to do. And when we do not want to go and we refuse to go and just ask to take a rain check, there's always that little bit of guilt. Well, at least for me there was, and I think for a lot of people already feel guilty enough about some of these things that go on in their life. They already feel guilty enough about it, and it's hard for them. And so we need to try to understand people who have mental illness, they deal with enough guilt on their own with their situation like it is. Believe me, they wish it were different than what it was. They'd like to go back to the way it was when they felt good all the time. But when you're going through a period and episode of this type of illness, a lot of things change. Now, we all have our responsibilities in life, and because of that, we have things that we have to do. That's just the way it is, like it or not. There are things that we have to do in life, and we understand those things. But I've never been big on making yourself do something just for the sake of going and doing something, or because you think it will actually help because somebody's tried to convince you it would help you to get out a little bit. You know, I've bought into those things before and gone out, and I didn't necessarily feel any better. I didn't necessarily feel any better at all for having gone. It made them feel better, but not necessarily me. Sometimes you do have to bite the bullet, so to speak, and do a thing with the family or friends. You go visit someone who is sick, or someone in the family that you haven't seen in a while. Sometimes you do have to bite the bullet and go and do some things, even when you don't feel like it. We understand that. But just for the sake of doing something, a lot of times I just feel better not doing something. But sometimes I am willing to go out and try to do things for the family and for others, for their fun. You might try something like this. When you're getting ready to leave, you might say something like, "Would you like for us to bring you something back?" If they're going out to eat, going to a restaurant or going to a fast food place or whatever, you say, "I don't really feel like going." They say, "Well, you want us to bring you something back to eat?" My family's good about doing that. And I appreciate that. That takes a little bit of pressure off me. I'm thinking, down deep, why didn't you just go? Why didn't you just go? I just hope they understand. Saying something like that, "You want us to bring something back," can help take some of the burden of that off. There are other symptoms that people with mental illness deal with. Some people tend to gain weight while they have an episode of mental illness, and some people lose weight. It can go either way with that. If you see someone in your family who sees a doctor regularly about his mental fitness, and you see them gaining a lot of weight, or you see them losing a lot of weight, it's good to be aware of, but it's not something you want to just drive down their throat every time you see them. Or something like, "Well, don't you think you ought to stop eating? Don't you think you ought to lose some weight?" I mean, listen, that's not going to help anything. That's not going to help anything. Some people sleep more when they have mental illness. Other people can't sleep at all. They can't sleep at all. I thank God that I can at least sleep at night. But there are people that can't even sleep. And that has all kinds of ramifications for the rest of your body for the following day when you don't get the amount of sleep that you need. It doesn't help anything. But it's just something that happens. Hopefully with the right kind of medication and treatment, a person will be brought to be more leveled out in their sleeping and waking time. What I'm trying to say, folks, is this. I say this to people who suffer from mental illness as well, because I know that they will identify with some of this that I'm talking about. But if you're one of these that cares for someone, and you want to know what can I do to help their situation, try not to put the people on a guilt trip of some sort about something they're doing or not doing. They don't feel like going somewhere on a given day. They may be in hell that day. Don't badger them about going and try to make them feel guilty because they don't go, because they already probably feel guilty enough. Just move along and understand that this, for this period of time, is how it is. And until treatment, the response to treatment is positive, things begin to turn in a little bit better direction, things will change all the way around. But try to understand that when you're dealing with mental illness, friends, it's not anything to laugh at or make fun of. It's not anything to make light of for people. And we need to understand and show understanding to people who have it. And I always say, if you don't have to deal with depression, or never had to deal with any type of mental illness, when you get up in the morning, get down on your knees and thank God you don't have to deal with it. Because it's no party. It's a hard thing, but you can help make a difference in your care and your love and concern for that person you love. You can make a difference for them. You can relieve a little bit of the stress and help them to get through it, so that later on, they will be back doing some of the things they used to enjoy doing. So my friend, that's the other part of how we need to respond to people who have mental illness. For those of us who care, we need to try to show understanding. And it can make all the difference in the world while the person's receiving treatment and other kinds of care needed to help improve their situation. Thank you for coming by again. May God bless you and help you today, especially if you're dealing with these kinds of trials. I feel your pain. But know today, friends, that there are those who care, those who are praying for you, and hoping that you will have a better day soon. May God bless you, and thanks again for stopping by.